Hi, welcome everyone. We are having a privilege today of having Daniel Gwertzman, the president of the Ami Center, with us. And I know many of you know Daniel and are familiar with the Ami Center. You've been there, studied there before. And I appreciate Daniel taking the time to talk with us. And I just want to say blessings, Daniel, from all that are in our community to you, to your family, and
Thank
I
you.
appreciate this time to have with you. So I wanted to start this. Bruce Larson and I were talking about, having uh, just a wonderful time with you on the recording, and we thought it would be interesting because a lot of people are getting details about the front line and different aspects of what is transpiring with the war effort, but not a lot of people are able to talk about what is life like now in Jerusalem? How do you get to work, to the grocery store? What impacts are you seeing there with this war effort that's in progress?
Very basically, there is buses, but the amount of buses here has been diminished, and the many stores are closed simply because many of our workers have been mobilized. And in the case of the women who aren't mobilized, they have children. Now, here in Jerusalem, they have started to go back to school because we have less missiles coming than in other parts of the country. But in other parts of the country, you literally wake up to a surprise every day because you don't know what to expect. Uh, Today, I had something out of my normal sphere of things. I went to visit a family in mourning, not far from the Hebrew Union College, the other side of the street from it. Their daughter was knifed to death last week opposite the area of the Damascus Gate, and it was packed. But she was a lone soldier. She came from Atlanta, Georgia in 2022. She was a sergeant in the border police. So, how do I come to be there? Everybody in Israel knows somebody, okay? And in my case, her uncle
Yes,
uh, uh, was our guide, Ed
yes,
Snitkoff.
Snidkoff, yes,
And we're very close, and I found out that his niece was killed. And I decided I didn't go to the funeral, which was on Thursday in Mount Herzl, but I wanted to go to the Shiva, which lasts 7 days. And so I went today, and the mayor was there, and it was packed.
mm,
So how is it packed if the family was in Atlanta, Georgia? The grandfather came in, the father with the children was there, uh, but they don't have much of a family here. Well, we turn out for people like these lone soldiers. There were many people who came to the cemetery. There were also people from the border police. And the mayor was there, who I happen to know, Moshe Leon, as well.
yes,
And this is for somebody whose family
hmm,
doesn't live here. They're not voters in the local election, but they are Jews. And she, on the 7th of October, which was the day of the Hamas massacre, was defending her kibbutz, which is near Gaza, kibbutz Saad, which is a religious kibbutz where she has adoptive kibbutz parents. And she came to Jerusalem in her job as a border policewoman. She was a sergeant, and she was protecting our people here.
hmm.
And
Wasn't
as
she
a
working?
result,
Wasn't she working right outside the Damascus Gate in that little security house above on the top of the stairs?
yes, that's where she was working. And she was very well liked by her fellow officers in the border police. and she was a first as a cheerleader and as a wrestler in high school. So she was an active lady, and it was the first time I met her parents. I didn't know them at all, and literally it was packed there with all sorts of people, and they all came up and spoke to the parents. It was a long receiving line. So I also have somebody through my wife, a cousin, who was based in Gaza, and he is missing. Okay, in Israel, when you become a soldier, they take your DNA. So they didn't find his DNA among any of the remains of the 1,400 who were killed. So they were assuming he was taken as a prisoner into Gaza. His base was overrun. You know, in order to identify some of the people, who did they mobilize? Not just the burial society,
The archaeologists.
archaeologists. Yeah,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
to go through the bone fragments. Sadly, you are familiar with this also from Maui, because this is the situation there, but it wasn't from a terrorist attack, it
Yes.
was from fire. So when you are out and about at night, the streets are empty here.
Wow.
Nobody is going out, okay? You go down Ben Yehuda Street, and most of the stores are closed. You go into the supermarket, and many of the things are missing from the supermarket because the delivery people are mobilized. So
Mm-hmm.
where do you go to get the food? You go to the Machne Yehuda market. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with the Machne Yehuda market is there is no safe room there. So what do you do when there's a missile attack? I told my wife jokingly, but it's not such a joke. I go to the toilet. Why? Because there's no windows in the toilet, and it has a metal security door, but it's not a secure room. Okay, it's not reinforced. And what are you supposed to do in the case of an attack? Go to a shelter. Okay. Now, the problem is there is no shelter in the market. It's in the surrounding community, and when the alarm goes and it's a siren, you're supposed to get to the shelter within a few minutes. We have more time here than we do in the area around the border of Gaza and the area around the border in the north where we have Hezbollah. And I have two sons.
Yes.
One of them lives here in Jerusalem, and on October 8th, he was mobilized, and he's in the south, which means he's near Gaza. All right. I have another son who has an important job. I can't go into what it is, but he has to go to the area around Tel Aviv, which is Missile Alley.
Mm.
So I don't know from day to day what is going to be. There's some times that he can work from home, but other times he has to go in. And even times, because his work is very valuable, and though he's religious, he has to work on Shabbat. I can't describe what he does, but let us just say it's important. All
Okay.
right. And I worry about my grandchildren. The ones here in Jerusalem, I have four little boys from 10 to 8 months. All right. And in Kiryat Gat, where my son lives, which is to the south and closer to Aza, I have three granddaughters. My oldest granddaughter is 14. And when she comes to visit us, I can't turn on any of the news because she's very frightened by what's going on. Now, here in my building, one flight down is the security room, okay? And what it is a storage area on both sides, which used to be filled because people use these storage areas to put their bikes and all sorts of things down there. But because of the situation, they emptied them out because you have to go down there. The only problem comes, what do you do when you go to a synagogue that has, in my case, 400 people? All
Mm.
right. Because the security room doesn't fit 400 people.
Yeah.
So some people choose not to go, or to go to one that is closer where they can at least get home. Okay.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that is one of the problems. And shopping, as I indicated, I have stores in my area, but the problem is they don't receive frequent deliveries. So the Home Front Command advised us, get a 3-day supply of food. Now, since we don't have barrages here, thank God the electricity, the water, the internet, everything is running.
Yeah.
Now the other,
Speaking of that, Daniel, what is transpiring or happening with you? Talk about going into a building like the hotel. What is happening with the hotels? Are they being used to house refugees, or
oh, all of our hotels are filled with people from the north and from the south.
mhm.
Now the problem is that many of them left with the clothes on their back and maybe one plastic bag with a few things. So as a result, people are coming in to provide educational programs. We have a choir at the Army Center. They're going around to entertain people, and people are donating clothes for them. And some of them need psychological counseling after what they have been through. Now you have another problem. No electricity, no running water. Don't you want a shower?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we take a shower, we have to make it fast, because if a siren goes off, you don't want to be in the shower with no clothes on. I,
Yeah.
I don't want to make it a laughing matter, but these are some of the things you have to
It's
deal with.
the reality of what you're facing. Well, it's really important that people get a feel for, just daily life, because this is another side of it, and it's what people there are facing, and at some point these little things become very wearing, and it makes life very difficult. So all of it put together is really something that you have to contend with. And I do want to go back to the funeral that you were attending this morning, because of course there are many who know Rabbi Snitkoff, Ed Snitkoff, from tours that we have done in Israel, from through the Ami Center and from Hargrave Ministries. And so I know there's a lot of heart behind what you're talking about, but I also know that this is something that is dramatically going on in Israel, because there were so many people on the 7th of October that were murdered in this attack. And the reality of just trying to have a proper Jewish burial for them, and with everything else going on, the outpouring of love and support from all of the residents of Jerusalem and the surrounding areas, this in and of itself, of dealing with the reality of burying the dead, is a huge impact on daily life in the society.
It's also an impossible situation for some people, but there are families that can't bury their dead, and there are bodies still unburied because we don't know who they belong to.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a horror for the families, because it's bad enough you say somebody is dead, at least you can deal with that. But when you say, for example, your relative may be in Gaza, you don't know what they're
Right.
experiencing.
Yes,
Okay.
that's traumatic.
It's very, very traumatic. And frankly, what we're experiencing also with this anti-Semitism all over the world, it has brought together the Jewish people in a sense of a common bond wherever they are. Okay, because now it's not just a case of Israel, but it's a case for all Jews. And this is the problem, because the young Jewish students abroad don't know how to deal with it. And as a result, we are experiencing now if I told you, you wouldn't believe it, Aliyah in the middle of a war. This is the 35th day
Yeah.
of the war. and people are making aliyah. It's true some of them had planned to do this beforehand, but they speeded it up. And when you deal with all these things, and they say, okay, what do you worry about? Well, I am 74 years old. I don't worry so much about myself, but I worry about my sons. I worry about my grandchildren. I worry about, how would I put it, the mental attitude of my oldest granddaughter, who's 14 and has to deal with the pressures of this. And I also worry about the younger kids who don't understand and they can't go to the playground. So
Hmm.
they have to play upstairs in the house. How do we manage? Very simple. My wife, who's also retired, but she's a cancer patient, she goes out and babysits sometimes with my grandchildren here in Jerusalem. And we invite them when they can come to be with us for a Shabbat. Not because our house is bigger or better than theirs. In some cases, yes, that's the case. But very simply, the shelter is right downstairs.
Hmm.
So in the case of my youngest granddaughter, who's 3 years old, there's a park at the end of the street. So the question came up when my son was here with my granddaughters, where can they go to play? So I told him the park at the end of the street. And I said, right next to the park is a Beit Knesset. I said, go in through the front door and go all the way down the steps to the bottom, and there's a secure room there. If you can't get back here in time to come in the entrance to this building.
Hmm.
So you have to think of all these things. And the other thing is, if you go to the shuk, it's dangerous. But I have to be
Yeah.
there. There are certain things that have to be done. And one of the other things is I pass through the shuk, so I can get things that my wife can't get in the supermarket here because the shuk gets deliveries every
Yeah.
day and the supermarket doesn't.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So
Well, listen, we're just about out of time here, but one thing I wanted to do is just because you were talking about your family, your family personally, and your children, your grandchildren, your sons, and I just want you to know how much we are aware of the difficulties and the dangers that you and your family are facing. And we are very, very much in prayer and will continue to be in prayer for you during this time. And so we just want to send our love to you and all those at Omni Center. And please tell them how much we are praying for them and believing for their personal safety as well as praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
I will tell you something. That is one of the things that people here appreciate the most because we're experiencing, in a situation of trial, you experience religious
Mm-hmm.
revival. And even among people who were fighting the religious before, now they ask people to pray for them. Some of them even put on a kippah and pray from time to time. And we even see this on the television broadcast where they say one of the prayers, and the man who isn't religious borrows a kippah to say the prayer.
Wow.
Okay, so it's very important to us that there are people around the world who are with us and praying for us. That strengthens us, and it also, I believe, strengthens the wider public outside, because I think one of the big problems that we have in the world with all these demonstrations is these are people who have no faith.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have no faith, you run after all sorts of things. You don't have to listen to me. Open up Matthew chapter 24 and you will read about all the different things that happen at the end of days. And one of them is deception. And unfortunately, some people are led away by the surrounding culture, the woke culture,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to be part of the crowd. So you have people, for example, what was it? LGBTQ community for Hamas. You know, in Hamas areas, if they get somebody who's LGBTQ, they kill them.
Yeah.
There was another medic who was 23 years old. He decided to stay behind and treat the wounded. He was an Arab. Awad Duralshe, 23 years old. And he said, I can speak Arabic. They won't harm me. He had bandages in his hand and they killed him. All right. So we have to deal with what we deal with, and we also have to look at the brighter side of things. There are good people out there. And I'm praying for you and your wife, and I pray for Bruce because you are wonderful people. And I tell you, Ed and all these others, they appreciate you very much. And all the people that know you, your prayers are reciprocated. You understanding? And I
Yes.
believe you build up a big account in heaven. Let's put it that way. So
Good.
God bless you, Gary, and God bless all the members of the Hargrave Fellowship.
Thank you, Daniel, for being with me, and I hope to talk to you soon.